meant to amicably resolving border issues with neighboring Sudan. And legal experts say crimes committed by TPLF go beyond acts of terrorism. Hello and thank you all for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. The New African magazine has named Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed as one of the 100 most influential Africans in 2020. It recalls that the Prime Minister of Ethiopia was one of the favorite names on its list last year. He had won the Nobel Peace Prize, brokered peace with Eritrea, launched a whole raft of reforms in his country, and had set about to unite the various ethnic groups and religions that make up Ethiopia. It was smiles all around, it said. WHO Chief Dr. Tedros Adhanom, CEO of Ethiopian Airlines Tewolde Gebremariam, and Admasu Taddese, head of the Trade and Development Bank, are also among the New Africans list of 100 most influential Africans of 2020. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister Demeke Mekonnen met with ambassadors and representatives of members of Human and Resilient Donor Group. He appreciated member countries of the group for their support and briefed the ambassadors on the ongoing humanitarian activities in the Tigray region and the results achieved so far. He said food items, commodities, and medical supplies are being provided in the region to address the needs of the beneficiaries. As agreed between the government of Ethiopia and the UN resident coordinator, and using the existing coordination mechanism, the provision of humanitarian assistance is going as planned, he said. Also recalling the colossal destruction caused on infrastructure by the TPLF, Demeke briefed the ambassadors on the daunting task of reconstruction that is now underway, with telecommunication lines being restored in almost all parts of the region and financial institutions resuming their operations. The interim administration is also working tirelessly in making sure that different levels of the administration of the region provide the necessary services, including engaging the community to effectively respond to the development needs of the people in the region, he said. The ambassadors have appreciated the government of Ethiopia for taking the initiative to brief them on current issues in detail. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia says it is in Ethiopia's best interest to amicably solve issues lingering along the Ethiopia-Sudan border. The ministry has also reiterated Ethiopia's commitment to concluding tripartite negotiations on its Grand Dam with good faith and fair approach. Spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Ambassador Dina Mufti, made the remarks in the ministry's bi-weekly press briefing today. Kasahun Chani attended the briefing and files the following report.
The spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Ambassador Dina Mufti, has briefed the media on some of the latest developments in the country, featuring such as the law enforcement operation in Tigray, the current Ethiopia-Sudan border dispute, and tripartite negotiations on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Regarding the border issues with Sudan, Ambassador Dina said the current problem on the part of the Sudanese side is that they are wrongly occupying the border areas of the two friendly nations. The spokesperson accentuated, however, the fact that Ethiopia strongly believes in solving the issues via amicable negotiations. When it comes to the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the spokesperson told the press that Ethiopia will not resort to deals that will in any way restrict Earth's rights to using the Nile waters.
The resumption of the trilateral negotiations on the GERD, it was chaired by the Minister for International Cooperation of the South Africa, which is the current chairperson of the African Union. Both ministers of water and foreign affairs were part of these delegations. They discussed on the way forward by the modalities presented to them by the experts that were raised by the recruited by the African Union, and the experts have presented the modalities to continue their discussions, and they discussed on the modalities. Those modalities were accepted with conditions by our side. The Sudanese side also have accepted that modalities with certain recommendations, but that modalities had been entirely rejected, flatly rejected by Egyptian side.
Dina also emphasized that Ethiopia is committed to concluding the negotiation with good faith to reach an agreement today and tomorrow, hoping to resolve the long-running dispute over the huge dam on the Abai River.
And so therefore, finally, it was decided by the ministers the expertise of the respective three countries have to continue on identifying and sorting out the differences that have been registered so far and the consensus, so that they will be presented to the coming meeting. This meeting will take place on the coming Sunday. This is how it evolved with regard to the trilateral discussions.
The Nile, the world's longest river, is a lifeline supplying both water and electricity to the 10 countries it traverses, as to Ambassador Dina. As per the spokesperson, various diplomatic activities have been undertaken in Ethiopia throughout the week, and these were pivotal to boost investment and relations with other countries.
With the economic diplomacy things, there are two things. One is an image building exercise among Ethiopians. Networking is abroad. This is by way of presenting Ethiopia to the rest of the world. The other was actually a discussion held with various ambassadors.
Legal experts note that TPLF's inhumane criminal activities against innocent civilians imply that they are adept at masterminding and committing heinous acts beyond those done by terrorists. However, officially including them on the list of terrorist groups is a task left to authorized government bodies, they pointed out. The TPLF clique has also been used to infringing constitutional principles and provisions over the past 2.5 years, they recalled. Emmanuel Jorge reports.
Following the law enforcement operation by the federal government in the state of Tigray, the criminal TPLF clique has been deposed, and now peace and calm is being restored in the state. In the meantime, Ethiopians across the country have been asking as to why the government hasn't labeled the TPLF as a terrorist group after all what the clique had done on innocent civilians and properties of the nation. The legal expert Mesembe Tasefa answers the question.
If you think on pragmatic terms and what they did to compromise the national security, national sovereignty and integrity of the Ethiopian state, they have done everything I think that any terrorist group can do. When you consider these things, I think people were pushing for proscribing TPLF as a terrorist organization. But if you are a policymaker, obviously, if you are in the business of statecraft, there are so many serious things that come with proscription of TPLF as a terrorist, or any other group for that matter, as a terrorist organization. So I would say the cautiousness from the state, for me, is not based on moral grounds, because some people have been questioning, why is not the government doing this, you know? It's not out of ill will, let's say, but rather based on pragmatic reasons of the complexity that it creates. And also, the very proscription of political groups as terrorist groups had also a negative effect, as you know, because many peaceful political groups in Ethiopia were also, I'm not talking about TPLF, but as a matter of principle, proscribing a political group as a terrorist organization is not as simple as many say, for me.
Mentioning that the TPLF has been defying the federal system, especially for the last 2.5 years, Executive Member of Ethiopian Lawyers Association Theodros Getachew also explains the procedures taken to pronounce TPLF as a terrorist based on the revised anti-terrorism law of Ethiopia.
According to the newly revised the anti-terrorism law of Ethiopia, it's the power of the House of People's Representative to proscribe an organization as a terrorist or revoke a terrorist organization from that list. But the initiation should start from the Attorney General. That's how the law designed the procedure. The Attorney General might make a recommendation to the Council of Ministers about a certain organization which they believe it should be proscribed as a terrorist organization. And the Council of Ministers will review that recommendation from the Attorney General, and if it believes it's necessary, it will send the recommendation to the House of People's Representative so as to declare or pronounce that organization as a terrorist.
Theodros added that even though what they committed was beyond that done by terrorists, specific concerned bodies are authorized to categorize them as a terrorist group.
Now, when it comes to TPLF, there have been series of reports, especially for the last 2.5 years. There have been series of reports that has been announced against that specific organization, especially the one that happened in the last two months and something. Well, they could amount to anything. But the responsibility of starting the procedure, proscribing this organization as a terrorist organization, will be the role of the Attorney General, and then the Council of Ministers, and then the House of People's Representative.
It is recalled that the incumbent took law enforcement military action against deposed TPLF clique following its cowardly act of attacking the indomitable North Command in the back.
Ethiopia's efforts to attract foreign direct investment and secure foreign debts may get into jeopardy if the nation fails to combat money laundering and terrorist financing activities. The remark was made by the country's Financial Intelligence Center, which is in charge of tracing and intercepting such financial crimes and associated predicate offences in collaboration with pertinent government institutions. Solomon Danyi presents the full account.
The majority of African countries are grappling with money laundering, terrorist financing, tax fraud, tax evasion, illicit financial flow, and related financial crimes. These crimes are supposed to worsen the lives of the poor in the continent, while few criminals are rolling in dough. Ethiopia is not an exception in this regard. The country's financial integrity has been abused by people and institutions who tirelessly work on misleading legal financial procedures. Though the country established a financial intelligence center years back to deal with money laundering and terrorist financing, the matter seeks a coordinated effort with the public and other government organs, said Mulugeta Temasgen, monitoring and assessment team leader at the center.
If we do not effectively intercept such financial crimes, the integrity of our financial institutions will be jeopardized. They could not be able to work with international financial organizations. Foreign direct investment will also be at risk. Even the dates and grants that we receive from the World Bank and IMF would be suspended. There is an international financial sanction that comes with failure to arrest money laundering and associated crimes. We were among the blacklisted countries a few years back. It's been very recently that we managed to clear our name from the list. If we don't keep our pace, there is still a possibility for the nation to fall back to that list again.
Financial Crimes Analysis Team Leader at the Center, Gabayo Gudeta, for his part, underscored that supporting and modernizing the Financial Intelligence Center of the country with adequate manpower and resources is critical.
The center did not have institutional independence to exercise its rights in the previous times. There were always boundaries for the untouchables. It was not free from political interferences. The center did also lack adequate manpower and resources. After the recent reform, however, the center has been able to regain its independence so as to investigate financial crimes.
The experts also underline that equipping the center with modern and effective technology would save the day, as financial crimes are being conducted in a very sophisticated manner.
The Interreligious Council has urged media outlets in Ethiopia to help address issues of fake news and disinformation as part of the efforts being made to maintain peace and harmony in the country. This came at a discussion forum held by the Council and different media organizations. The event shed the spotlight on the fact that media outlets need to have the lion's share in the fight against dissemination of fake news and disinformation intentionally being propagated by individuals and groups bent on dismantling Ethiopia. The role of the media is therefore irreplaceable in ensuring peace, unity and harmony among the people and supporting democracy in Ethiopia, it was pointed out. The vibe of Christmas, or Ganna as it is known here in Ethiopia, has already begun to be felt in Addis Ababa and across Ethiopia. Here in the capital, sellers and buyers have been busy all day, bargaining the reasonability of current market prices of live animals in Addis Ababa. Ganna has a very colorful vibe among the followers of Christianity, where meat takes the dominant role in the Christmas feast. So you're very likely to experience a hectic market and price fluctuation before the actual holiday falls every year. However, both the supply and demand sides seem to be okay as we speak, with the current price of an ox, for instance, ranging from 12,000 birr to 35,000 birr in one of the livestock markets in Addis Ababa today. Accordingly, customers say no price increment was shown compared to last year's market. In the meantime, marketers are strongly urged to implement all government guidelines to stay safe from the global pandemic.
Policy Matters is a conversation platform which aims to provide reasoned analysis and context to the activities, reforms, and policies of the federal government of Ethiopia. Exploring various reforms the government is undertaking, the conversation platform aspires to enable nuanced and informed understanding.
Why was policy reform necessary? Which started out with the homegrown economic reform and now is the 10-year prospective plan. Why was it necessary?
The growth that Ethiopia has been registering for the last decade or so lacked quality. The 10-year plan envisions Ethiopia to be an African beacon of prosperity by 2030. And having this vision at the top, it has this overarching goal of ensuring shared prosperity, prosperity in all its dimensions, where every citizen gets his or share of the cake.
We both know that the private sector has not been allowed to grow.
Now the government really understands the bumpy road that the private sector have been through.
How do you plan on then getting growth and achieving some of these fantastic ambitions that you've laid down to be achieved through the private sector?
So the private sector should really come into the driver's seat. We have these interim strategies, for instance, the public-private partnership. So it's really working well, especially in areas of energy and infrastructure. We want to expand that, of course, to other sectors too. So that would really augment the capacities of the private sector.
Welcome back. You're watching Addis News Hour. The recognition of Little Ethiopia by the Washington, D.C. Council will beef up the tourism industry among the Ethiopian diaspora. Ethio-American political scientist Professor Brooke Hailu made the remark in an interview with ETV English. He congratulates Ethiopians and friends of Ethiopia on their recognition, which was realized after 2 decades. Shifarau Lag, a report.
Ethiopian American communities in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area are celebrating the recognition of Little Ethiopia by the council members of Washington, D.C. In an exclusive interview with ETV English, Professor of Political Science Brooke Hailu has expressed his congratulations to Ethiopians and friends of Ethiopia.
Certain part of Washington, D.C., 9th Street and U, if you guys know that the whole area around that area, 9th Street, U Street up to 12th Street, that neighborhood, now is officially renamed as Little Ethiopia. And all of us are thrilled and happy. All of us are really happy. It took the Ethiopian community 20 years to bring into success the certain part of districts, the historical district of Washington, D.C. be named.
As one of the contributors of the recognition, Professor Brooke recounts the process which spanned 2 decades.
I was involved in that from 2001 to 2004. I was at the time senior diplomat of Ethiopia stationed in Washington, D.C., and I was working hand in hand with the Ethiopian community. Some members are still there. I could name names. The idea died down. I left to Europe on another assignment after that, and I tried to follow what was going on. Between, I believe, 2005, 2004 until 2009, the idea was hanging up in the air. And guess what? The committee once again reconstituted itself in 2009. They tried again, and they succeeded in 2020 December. That's remarkable. That's remarkable.
Similar efforts will be made to scale up the move to other parts of the country with large Ethiopian communities, he added.
Success is sweet, but the road might be bumpy. And we are glad that now, for always, any Ethiopian, future generation, and when you guys come to America, you have a place to visit, and all tourists to visit called Little Ethiopia. And one last point on that, it's the second city. Los Angeles succeeded before Washington, D.C. in shorter a time. If you go to Los Angeles, there is a neighborhood called Little Ethiopia there. And we want to continue as a wish as an Ethiopian American in Seattle, in Atlanta, in Denver, in North Carolina, in New York and other places.
The recognition of Little Ethiopia by the Council will further bolster and strengthen the social and cultural ties between Addis Ababa and Washington, D.C., he pointed out.
In business news, the African Continental Free Trade Area officially kicked off on January 1st, 2021 in a landmark agreement, Interconnecting African Economies. So far, 54 nations have signed the agreement, and recently, the Ethiopian Airlines DHL and the African Electronic Trade Group partnered to transport historical parcels to various African countries in line with the African Continental Free Trade Area. Talking to ETV, President of Ethiopian Chamber of Commerce and Sectoral Association, Melaku Uzazau, said further activities are needed to raise the awareness of Ethiopians on the agreement. Listen to this.
እኛ ሀገር በመጀመሪያ ያለውን ፋይዳና ጠቀሜታ በጥናት አስመርኩዘን
In Ethiopia, we are trying to raise awareness of the business community based on research, as we do not believe the business community in Ethiopia has appropriate knowledge about African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Most products in Ethiopia are agriculture and service sector. These products have big share in the GDP. If we are implementing the platform of African Continental Free Trade Agreement, it can create huge opportunity. We can get better market, technology transfer, and foreign direct investment among others. As business community, we have to exert our effort to increase our competence in the sector. I think further efforts are also needed to create competent business community to better compete with others at international level.
Melaku added the implementation of AFCFTA helps Ethiopia join broader market accesses to other African countries. This calls for extra efforts to come up with more competitive industry sectors.
የሚፈጥርልን መልካም አጋጣሚ ከአፍሪካውያን ወንድሞቻችን ጋራ የሚኖረን ገበያ ይሰፋልናል።
The implementation of African Continental Free Trade Agreement helps us join better markets with other African brothers. With less logistic and transport costs, we can provide our product with fair price to other African countries. Previously, we focused on Asia, Europe and Middle East markets, but now we have to use competitive advantages by venturing into other African markets. In Ethiopia, we have surplus land, water, fishing, mining, as well as other natural resources. African countries highly demand these products. Apart from exporting such products, we have to maximize our effort for value addition in these products. We have to generate hard currency by developing the industry sector to ensure economic growth in our country. I think the government has prioritized to develop the industry sector. As a result, further activities are necessary to avoid some infrastructure facility bottlenecks in this sector.
In a related development, the AFCFTA agreement will create the largest free trade area in the world, measured by the number of countries participating. The pact also connects 1.3 billion people across 55 countries with a combined gross domestic product, or GDP, valued at $3.4 trillion. It has the potential to lift 30 million people out of extreme poverty, but achieving its full potential will depend on putting in place significant policy reforms and trade facilitation measures. Talking to CGTN Africa Group Executive Director for AFCFTA in Ghana, Louis Yao Aful said this is enough to kick off a commercially meaningful start.
Yes, initially 22 actually was needed to make the agreement come into force. And so back in 2020, May 2020, the agreement was in force after the 22nd country submitted the letters of ratification or the letters of instrument to the AUC. And so, yes, now beyond 22, we are good to go. And also, it's important for us to understand that one of the most important things that we needed was the rules of origin. And the rules of origin is about 82% ready. And so to go with the current party states who are ready to trade, I think we're good to go.
Louis also talks about the financial payment system of the agreement tariff liberalization under AFCFTA.
The certificates of origin must have a unique nature of AFTA, and this must be communicated to the custom authorities of various party states. That is in the process, but I don't think overwhelmingly that is fully ready. We also foresee a situation whereby we are going to look at the issues of certain existing agreements between, those who are non-state actors or non-state parties, like those you just said who have not yet fully become members. How are they going to trade with those who are state actors? Yes, there was a system whereby they were given a certain application form to fill. Right. In other words, if you are not a state party, you have to apply to be given a certain period to participate and to enjoy the tariff liberalization.
And finally, to a story from across Africa. The Central African Republic President, Faustin Archange Touadera, has been re-elected in the first round of the presidential vote on December 27 by securing more than 53% of votes in the first round, according to provisional results announced by the Electoral Commission on Monday. He won a majority with 53.92% of votes. Matthias Moruba, president of the National Election Authority, told a news conference in the capital Bangui. However, the results must be officially validated by the Constitutional Court if there are possible appeals, as reported by Africa News and France 24.
Les populations n'ont pas besoin des armes pour prendre le pouvoir. Nous avons tout le temps souffert. Et aujourd'hui, vous-même, vous avez constaté, vous avez vu, il a fait de son mieux pour avancer le pays dans 5 ans.
Je suis quand même la jeunesse de la MLPC, mais si aujourd'hui le président Touadéra a gagné parce qu'il a mérité. C'est un homme qui a bataillé, il a vraiment bataillé. Et pour ce pays, moi je suis très reconnaissant.
A quick reminder of the day's headlines. Ethiopia reiterates commitment to amicably resolving border issues with neighboring Sudan.